Knock, knock, knock.
Man.
Hello, my name is JC Strong with the South Alabama College of Nursing, and I'm going to be performing the musculoskeletal exam on you today. Is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I'm going to be performing hand hygiene before I get started. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the color of your knees, and they're slightly tan, and that's equal bilaterally. I don't know any swelling, redness, bruising, or masses. Is it okay if I touch your knees?
Yep.
Your knees are slightly cold, and that is equal on bilaterally. I don't feel any masses or swelling. Do you have any tenderness?
No.
Okay. So I'm going to move on to testing your strength. So can you put your arms up like this for me? So normally I'd be standing right in front of him, but in these circumstances I'm going to stand to the side so you guys can see what I'm doing. So I'm going to pull on them and you just pull back. I'm going to push and you push back. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing for your legs. So I'm just going to push on them and you just push up off the table. Okay. So now I'm going to do the lower legs. Okay, so I'm going to pull on and you just pull back. Okay, and I'm going to push on and you push back. Okay, so you got a 5 out of 5 on your strength for your upper extremities and your lower extremities. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to move on to range of motion. Okay, so open your mouth, then protrude your jaw, move it to side to side. Okay, so next we're going to move on to touching your chin to your chest, and this is flexion, look at me, that's extension, and then look up, and that's hyperextension. So now we're going to do a lateral bend. So I'm going to have you try and touch your ear to your shoulder, and then your ear to your shoulder on the other side. And then now I'm going to have you look at the wall, and then look at the kitchen. And that is a rotation. So now we're going to move on to your shoulders. So I'm going to have you put your hands out in front of you like this. This is extension, or this is flexion. Put them down by your side. That's extension. And then put them behind you. Put them behind you, and that's hyperextension. Okay, you're good. Okay. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to have you internally rotate them, so put them behind your back. With your hands by your scapula, so put them up toward the middle of your back. No, like your elbows bent, like this. Just do like how I'm doing. Okay, and then put them behind your head, like this. Okay, now I'm gonna have you do abduction, and then adduction. Okay, so the next thing I'm gonna have you do is we're gonna move on to the elbows. So I'm gonna have you put them like this, and this is flexion, and then extension, and then lock them out, and then that's hyperextension. So next we're going to move on to the wrists and the fingers. So we're going to do flexion, extension, and then hyperextension, and then we're going to do radial deviation, alternate deviation, and now we're going to move on to the fingers. You do flexion, extension, and then hyperextension. So now I'm going to have you touch your fingers to each of touch your thumb to each one of your other fingers. Good. And then I'm going to have you touch your thumb to the base of your little finger. And I'm also going to have you make a fist with your hands, and then that's abduction, and then sprawl out your fingers, and that's abduction. So the next thing we're going to move on to is we're going to move on to the lower part of your body, and then this would usually be done bilaterally, but today we're only going to do it on one side of your body. So I'm going to have you hold on to the table, and we're going to start off with your hip. So first you're going to lift your knee, and then this is flexion, and then put it down, that's extension, and then put it behind you, that's hyperextension. So next we're going to move on to abduction, so you're going to put it to the side, put it down, and then that's abduction. So the next thing we're going to do is externally rotate it, and now we're going to internally rotate it, and now we're going to move on to your knees. So you're going to bend it like this, and that is flexion, and then put it down, that's extension, and then lock it out, that's hyperextension. And then now we're going to move on to your ankles and your toes. So you're going to first start out with pointing your toes toward the ground, that's palmar flexion, and then point them up to your chin, that's dorsiflexion. And then now you are going to point your soles outward, that's eversion. Point them inward, that's inversion. And now you're going to curl your toes, that's flexion, and then sprawl them out, that's extension. Next thing we're going to do, I didn't know any crepitus or audible crepitus during that, and you had full range of motion. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to check your spinal range of motion. So the first thing that we're going to do for that is we're going to try and touch our toes. So just bend down as far as you can, and then lift back up and look at me, and then that is extension, and then go back 30 degrees-ish, and then that's hyperextension. Okay, so next we're going to rotate without moving our hips toward the wall, and then we're going to rotate toward the kitchen without moving our hips. And then we're also going to do a lateral bend, so just bend your body as much as you can without moving your hips. Come closer this way, you can see. And then do the same thing on this side. You can move your upper body. Okay, so you had full range of motion for your spinal range of motion test, and I did not know any audible crepitus for that either. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to check for scoliosis. So I'm going to have you turn around. I'm going to have you lift your shirt up. Okay, so I note that your spine is straight, your cervical spine is concave, your thoracic spine is convex, and your lumbar spine is concave. So next I'm going to have you bend down at your waist. Okay, so your shoulders are in the same place bilaterally, your scapula are in the same place bilaterally, and your iliac crest is in the same place bilaterally. I don't know any scoliosis, and your spine is still straight now. So you can stand back up. I'll help you. And this concludes my musculoskeletal assessment.